The story begins with a man named Russell sitting in jail and telling his story. According to him, he pulled off a bank robbery so perfect that no police officer has ever been able to figure out how it was done. He starts from the beginning and explains exactly how the operation unfolded. On the day of the robbery, the bank was packed with customers from different backgrounds. Then, a man walked into the bank wearing a white uniform and glasses. Nobody inside realizes they're about to witness a robbery, unlike any other. A few seconds later, several masked people wearing the same uniform enter behind him. The first man then covers his face as well. They immediately lock the bank's doors and suddenly pull out their weapons, sending everyone inside into a panic. The robbers then release smoke bombs throughout the bank. At that exact moment, a patrol officer passing outside notices smoke coming from the building. He immediately radios for backup. Outside, help is already on the way, but the situation is getting worse by the second. Before anything else can happen, one of the robbers points a gun at the officer and warns him that they are holding dozens of hostages inside. One wrong move now could turn the entire situation into a massacre. The robber warns that if the police try anything, every hostage inside will be killed. The officer quickly calls in additional units and begins moving civilians away from the area. We then meet Detective Frazier. The moment he hears about the robbery, he heads to the bank with his team. Within minutes, law enforcement surrounds the entire building from every direction. The bank is locked down, and the city is now watching every move. Television news crews from across the country begin gathering outside. Meanwhile, the bank's owner learns that armed robbers have taken control of his bank and are holding people hostage. As Detective Frazier and Detective Mitchell begin their investigation, the robbers inside gather all the hostages into one area. They collect everyone's cell phones and place them into a large envelope. At first, everything seems organized, until one small lie changes everything. A bank employee named Peter tells them he left his phone at home. One robber takes someone else's phone and calls Peter's number. Seconds later, a ringtone starts coming from an office inside the bank. Peter instantly realizes he's been caught. Terrified, he begins apologizing, but the gang leader drags him into the office and beats him until he's satisfied. Now every hostage understands exactly what happens to anyone who tries to be clever. Eventually, the gang leader returns and warns everyone that the same thing will happen to anyone who attempts to outsmart them. After that, the robbers force all the hostages to remove their clothes and change into outfits identical to the ones the robbers are wearing. By now, news of the robbery has spread across the country. Then an elderly man inside the bank suffers a heart attack. The robbers are forced to let him leave so he can receive medical attention. For the police, this is finally a chance to learn what's happening inside. As soon as the man comes out, detectives question him extensively, but all he can tell them is that the robbers are wearing matching uniforms and that they're heavily armed. Meanwhile, the bank owner, Arthur, contacts a woman named Madeline and asks to meet with her. When they meet, she tells him she knows he has a secret hidden inside one of the bank's safe deposit boxes. The robbery may not be about money at all, and that's what makes it dangerous. Madeline wants to know what's inside the box, but Arthur refuses to explain. He says it contains something extremely valuable, and he doesn't want anyone discovering anything about it. At the same time, the detectives receive information about the vehicles the robbers used to arrive at the bank, and little by little, the mystery behind the robbery begins to deepen. The vehicles the robbers arrived in all turn out to be stolen. The police then try to monitor the situation through the bank's security camera footage, but by that point, the robbers have already destroyed the cameras. Every possible way to see inside the bank has now been cut off. A short time later, the robbers send a hostage outside with a bag hanging around his neck. When the police retrieve it, they find a list of demands written by the robbers. They want 2 vehicles and an airplane with a pilot by 9 p.m. If their demands are not met, they threaten to execute 1 hostage every hour. The pressure on law enforcement rises instantly. Around the same time, Arthur arrives and asks about the situation inside the bank. The detectives assure him that they will keep him updated on every development. Later, the robbers request food and drinks for the people inside. That's when Detective Frazier comes up with an idea. He secretly places microphones inside the food containers so he can listen to conversations inside the bank. Frazier personally delivers the boxes to the bank and tries to speak with a gang leader through the door, but the robber completely ignores him. For now, the robbers remain firmly in control of the situation. After returning, Frazier begins listening to the recordings captured through the hidden microphones, but the people inside seem to be speaking in a strange, foreign language. At first, it sounds like a breakthrough, but it quickly turns into a dead end. Eventually, the police bring in a woman who understands the language. After listening carefully, she explains that it is nothing more than a speech from the president of Albania. The robbers are far more clever than anyone expected. They already knew Frazier would try something like this, so they intentionally wasted his time and gained an advantage. The robbers stay one step ahead, while the police keep chasing shadows. Meanwhile, inside the bank, Russell and his crew open the safe deposit box. They steal the bank owner's confidential documents while leaving the valuable diamonds untouched. Back outside, the city's mayor arrives with Madeline to meet Detective Frazier. He tells Frazier that Madeline may be able to help with the situation, but Frazier immediately refuses the offer. At that moment, the gang leader calls from inside the bank and starts starts pressuring Fraser to meet the demands. Fraser responds by asking for more time. Meanwhile, Madeline directly contacts Russell and tells him she is not with the police, but she has a very attractive offer for him. Eventually, Russell agrees to let her come inside the bank, and for the first time, someone from the outside enters the robber's world. When Madeline enters the bank, she tells Russell that the police will almost certainly send him to prison for the rest of his life, but if he agrees to work with her, she can make sure he walks away without facing any charges. She also offers him $20 million for his cooperation. Russell listens, then tells her to stop talking in circles and explain who is really behind all of this. The conversation is no longer about the robbery. It's about something much bigger. Madeline refuses to reveal any names. That's when the gang leader begins telling her a story. During World War II, an American man worked at a bank in Switzerland. He took advantage of the chaos surrounding the Nazis and used the situation to enrich himself. Before long, he became incredibly wealthy. With that money, he eventually founded this bank. According to Russell, that same man is the one who sent Madeline there. Suddenly, the secret hidden in the bank starts to make sense. Madeline realizes she is dealing with someone far more prepared than she expected. She immediately gets to the point. In exchange for helping Russell escape punishment, she wants the confidential documents hidden inside the safe deposit box. Russell then shows her the documents, but he flatly refuses to hand them over. With no deal in place, Madeline quietly turns around and leaves. And just like that, the negotiation ends without either side getting what they want. As soon as Madeline comes back out, Fraser asks her about the robbers. Madeline tells him she's completely convinced that no matter what happens, Russell isn't going to kill anyone. According to her, he's only making threats to force people to listen to him. Madeline is certain the robber's real weapon isn't violence, it's leverage. Fraser then calls Russell and tells him the airplane is ready. But before anything else happens, he wants to go inside the bank himself and check on the hostages. Russell agrees, and Fraser enters the bank. He speaks with the hostages throughout the building and confirms that they're all safe. As he's leaving, he tells Russell that no matter what happens, he'll make sure he spends the rest of his life behind bars. The detective makes a promise, but Russell answers with one of his own. Russell confidently tells him that he'll walk right past him and escape in plain sight, and Fraser won't even recognize him. Hearing that, Fraser suddenly lunges at him. Before he can do anything, another robber steps in from behind and presses a gun against his head. The gang leader then warns him that if their demands aren't met, they'll start killing hostages one by one. The standoff has reached a point where one mistake could change everything. Eventually, Fraser returns to the police command tent. By now, even he is convinced that Russell isn't actually going to kill anyone. Just then, an officer informs him that he's been removed from the case and that another detective will be taking over. The situation is slipping out of Fraser's hands just when it's becoming clear. The new captain immediately starts planning an assault on the bank to free the hostages. On top of that, his team still has to locate the bombs the robbers claim to have planted inside the building. Meanwhile, Fraser discovers a device hidden inside one of the bags the robbers sent out earlier. That's when he realizes the robbers have been listening to police communications the entire time. Every strategy the police discussed was being heard from inside the bank. Fraser immediately calls the captain and tells him to stop the assault because the robbers already know about the plan. Inside the bank, the crew is actually preparing for a confrontation with law enforcement. They gather all the hostages together and move them upstairs. Then they set off powerful explosions on the lower floor. Moments later, they release every hostage and quietly blend into the chaos as everyone rushes out of the bank together. In the confusion, the robbers disappear into the crowd without anyone noticing. The captain immediately orders every officer to hold their fire because innocent civilians are pouring out of the bank. Police detain everyone and then search every inch of the building. But despite a thorough sweep, they can't find a single trace of the robbers. The hostages are accounted for, but the criminals are nowhere to be found. The strangest part is that the robbers never touch the money. Even more surprising, every weapon they left behind turns out to be fake. Investigators quickly realize that the robbers escaped alongside the hostages. They conduct intense interviews with every person who came out of the building, but despite all their efforts, they still can't identify the real culprits. No one can identify them because nobody ever saw their faces. Eventually, government officials arrive and order Fraser to close the case due to a lack of evidence. He agrees on the surface, but deep down, he has no intention of letting it go. Meanwhile, Madeline meets with Arthur and tells him that Russell kept a confidential file for himself, so Arthur wouldn't be able to take action against him. The file contains evidence showing that Arthur profited from the mistreatment of Jewish families during World War II and made a fortune from it. At last, the true reason behind the robbery begins to reveal itself, and that may be the exact reason the robbers targeted Arthur's bank in the first place. When confronted, Arthur tries to defend himself. He says he was young at the time and became intoxicated by success, to the point where he lost the ability to tell right from wrong. For the first time, Arthur is forced to face the consequences of his past. The story then returns to Russell, but he's not in jail. Instead, he's hiding inside a small, secret room. After stealing the confidential file from the safe deposit box, he also took Arthur's most valuable diamonds. Then he concealed himself inside a hidden compartment within the bank itself. The robbers never truly left the bank when everyone thought they had. A full week passes before Russell's partners finally come to pick him up. At that exact moment, Fraser also happens to be entering the bank. The two men unexpectedly cross paths. Russell walks right past him, but Fraser doesn't recognize him. Russell calmly leaves the building, gets into his partner's vehicle, and drives away. Meanwhile, Fraser heads inside and has Arthur's safe deposit box opened. Russell's impossible promise has just become reality. Inside the box, Fraser finds a diamond ring and a note that reads, "Follow the ring." He immediately goes to Arthur and asks about it, but Arthur refuses to give him a meaningful answer. The ring seems small, but it carries the weight of a much darker story. Fraser then speaks with Madeline and finally learns the truth. The ring originally belonged to a Jewish family, but one of their friends betrayed them, handed them over to the Nazis, and eventually took possession of the ring himself. After learning this, Fraser returns home. That's when he notices something shocking. The real diamond is sitting inside his own pocket. Suddenly, everything Russell said starts making perfect sense. Fraser realizes that the man he bumped into at the bank was Russell all along. Russell kept his word. He walked right past the detective and escaped in plain sight. But Russell never came for the diamonds alone. He knew Fraser was struggling financially, so after taking the diamond, he secretly slipped it into Fraser's pocket to help him out. In the end, the greatest trick wasn't the robbery. It was escaping right in front of everyone. He escaped the bank, he escaped the police. But some things never let you escape them. Maybe survival isn't about getting away. Maybe it's about living with what happened. If stories like this stay with you, subscribe to Rafsat, because some stories end and some follow you home.